Hi, this is Chloe here at Inner Whispers. Today I'm really pleased to be unboxing the new deluxe edition of the DruidCraft Tarot, which was released this year, 2017, by Edison Sad. This deck is one that's had an enduring effect on the whole of the tarot community, I think. Certainly it's been in print non-stop for 13 years now, I think it is, which is quite something when lots of decks have a single print run and that's it. This is at least the 4th edition, and it is a new deluxe edition that was released, as I say, this year. As for my own history with this deck, it was one of the very first decks that I bought for myself, and so it's had a lasting place in my heart. About 5 years after I first got my copy of it, I bought a second copy so that I could trim the borders off it, because as anyone who's sort of experienced this deck knows, the cards are really quite big and a little bit unmanageable for most women's hands, put it that way. I don't have particularly small hands and I still struggled with it a lot, so I trimmed it and I love it, and I'm going to do a little comparison with the different versions that I have, so you'll be able to see that and how it can be borderless and how else it could be borderless. So yes, I mean, 5 years on from when I first bought a copy, I still loved it enough to buy another copy, trim it by hand and start using it that way. So it's a deck that I've worked with a lot and that I really love. And also because it is, you know, one of the first decks that I ever bought for myself, it's also one of the companion books that I read cover to cover because, you know, I didn't have that many decks, I didn't have that many books, and it's a great deck and book. So much so, in fact, that even though I have a collection of literally hundreds of tarot decks, this is the only one that my husband ever uses. Comes and steals it away from me now and again. So yes, it's a deck that has an enduring place in my heart as well as in the tarot community as a whole, and so this new edition is going to be very welcome for many people. Let's take a look and see exactly what they've done. So here I have the new edition DruidCraft along with the book that I got with the original deck and my hand-trimmed version. As you can see, I trimmed the images literally so that they have absolutely no border or any titles. I know that some people have trimmed it so it just includes the green sort of border here and the title, and that looks really nice as well, but this way it really is a nice little handful and very easy to shuffle and manage. And hey, by that point I knew the cards so well I really didn't need the title, so that's the choice that I made. But yeah, you can obviously stick with the regular, do any kind of trimming you like, what have you. So I have these out to sort of compare and see what the differences are with this lovely new deluxe edition. Let's take a look at that. So it's got a little ribbon catch here to help you get the big box out, I think. Okay. Right. And straight away I noticed that there's a difference in the coloration. This one has a lot more of a green tinge rather than a grey tinge, at least on the book. As you see, the box is pretty solid, and let's have a look. So inside, some minor changes. So yes, this is the 2004 edition, this is the 2017 edition. Everything looks pretty much the same. And if we, for example, compare this, the colour is a little bit stronger on the older edition than on the newer one, but otherwise it looks pretty much identical, and they're both the same, they're both the same size. So not much change there as far as I can see, just that this one is perhaps a little bit lighter in the colouring and a bit greener on this front. So let's look at what is perhaps most interesting, the cards themselves. So they come in 2 packs. And so they are in card order: wands, cups. Okay. Swords and pentacles, and then the majors here. So interestingly, after the book was lighter in the new version, the cards actually seem to be a little bit darker in the terms of the coloration, if you look at the sky in these two at least. So we'll see how that compares across. But fundamentally, the images are the same, the size is the same, the backs are the same. These ones perhaps a teeny touch darker, but really not so you can tell. And this still has the copyright Will Worthington 2004 on it, so that is also the same, so you wouldn't be able to tell the difference at a glance in that regard. Yeah. So I think we'll just go through these, assuming that they're probably going to be the same but slightly darker. And there's not much in it. There is, yes, these do have a bit of extra saturation, I guess would be the right way of putting it, rather than darker. So this is more obviously nighttime. It's, yeah, that little bit more saturated. And there's not much in it. Like this one, actually, she looks almost lighter. So there's been perhaps minor adjustments in the coloration, a bit more saturation that side again, but not much in it. So I think for the rest, we'll just go through these cards, see them in detail. And of course, this deck, one of the delights of it is that it comes from a Wicca and Druidic sort of perspective. So here, the lovers, we have them naked and with the sacred hind in the background. The high priest is a sort of shamanic priest, a druid, rather than, Christian priest. And I've always loved Boudica for the chariot, charging in. Strength instead of a lion, because you didn't have lions in sort of Britain in those days. We had a boar, which is also a strong, wild, dangerous beast, so it works very well. We have the hermit with a wolf, and drawing a line in the sand. The wheel, she has the wheel of time, and also she's in a liminal space between the sea and the land, a place of changes and transformation. Justice with the owl, I've always loved that. The Hanged Man, which there were some issues around this when it first moved to the States, because obviously, full male nudity. But, I like that there is that realism to this. These are real people. Yeah. And the crone here as death. Ceridwen with her cauldron of transformation in both regards. The Feralt is the renaming of temperance, so finding that balance, and the lovely rainbow in the background. So there's a lot of traditional symbolism, even while there are also differences. And the devil instead is Kanunos, so the horned god, so a slightly different sense to it. Perhaps about sensuality, but that not being seen as necessarily a negative. We have the tower, the star, the moon, sun, rebirth instead of judgment, a lovely coming out of a dark cave, and all these symbolisms of rebirth, like the hare and the trumpet being blown, so that's sort of more traditional symbolism, and the world. So one of the wonderful things about this deck is the way that there's so much of a natural feel to it. The fiery ones with the sun and this great big one, but also the stag ready to leap the crevasse, the power of that. Here we have one of the old paintings on the side of a hill, 2 of Wands, where you need a different perspective to be able to see this. It's only seen from afar. 3 of Wands, the 4. And the 5 of Wands, all the 5s representing conflict as they do, or challenges and the transformation that challenges bring, show the story of Ceridwen and Taliesin. So this is actually the end of that, where Ceridwen has changed into a chicken, and Taliesin changed it into a grain of, a grain, and she eats him. And then from that, she actually gives birth to him anew as Taliesin, whereas before he was, I think it's Gwydion. 6 of Wands, 7. I love the fact that here it's actually somebody throwing it, so more of a directedness to this movement, a purposefulness, a focus and an aim, but also recognizing that, sometimes it takes more than one wand before you hit your target. 9, 10. And in this deck also, the court cards are renamed to be Princess, Prince, Queen and King. And they've done a really beautiful job of this. I read something recently where philipcarr-gomm talked about it and said that he, having a sort of psychology background, started with the people cards rather than sort of finishing with them. So that was something that was very important to him. And so, the Wands cards, they're quite fiery and dynamic. There's a lot of movement and passion to them, that fire in the background of the Queen and her lovely cat underneath, and the King. And with the other court cards, they are created so that they all are of a piece, and yet that they express the aspect of their element, fire, water, earth and air. So like the swords are all quite aquiline with piercing gazes and that sort of thing. Moving into the cups. A lot of... Obviously, this is one of those decks which is quite easy to read out of the pack if you know Rider-Waite. It was based on the Rider-Waite symbolism. I'm always slightly disappointed when the 3 of Cups doesn't show women supporting one another, but here we have 3 men drinking together. It's still that party celebration and a group of friends. So that's just a very, very minor personal niggle. The 4 of Cups. The 5, there's Taliesin and Ceridwen chasing after one another in their aquatic forms. The 6 of Cups. 7, I like this sort of a Narcissus looking into the pool of what might be the illusions, that sense. And a beautiful dynamic 8 of Cups, walking up, following the stream, following the source, connecting us with the water element very strongly there. 9 of Cups, here it says something about, he's sitting there with all of this plenty and abundance, but he is sitting alone in this great hall and all the cups laid out, but no one there to drink with him. And the 10 of Cups, family. The Princess of Cups. The Prince. Another lovely thing in this deck is the fact that the King and Queen, if you bring them together, you can see it better actually in the trimmed version, but they are in the same landscape. So a little kind of joining them together when they are next to one another. The Ace of Swords, Excalibur. And I absolutely adore this, the 2 paths, the 2 swords. There isn't the watery aspect to it, but that tree for me, well, I've done journeying with this and spoken with the tree, so that's always been an element that I've really loved of this card and this deck. And here the 3 of Swords, the heart is of stone, it's not pierced. through pain and difficulty comes inspiration. The Four of Swords, considering things. The Five. I like as well here that the Six is moving towards us, so we don't see kind of where she's going to, but yeah, that forward movement is very much portrayed. And also the Seven of Swords, I absolutely adore this, that it's not so much about stealing things away. I mean, he's working into the night, but it's also, for me, this is about gathering ideas, because swords are thoughts, they're ideas. So, you know, the normal Rider-Waite, whereas someone sneaking away, well, instead this is someone working into the night, and perhaps some of these ideas are ideas that he's gathered from books or from other people, but he's also bringing them together in a way that perhaps is different and new, that there is something being created here rather than just a theft. And so I often associate this card with research, for example, and study. Less study, but more research. Eight of Swords, the 9, and the 10. Here we have these aquiline princess, very penetrating gaze, prince, the Queen, and the King, thoughtful. So really very human, the people in the court cards here. You can really get a sense of them. An interesting Ace of Pentacles, not quite a pentacle really, because there isn't the circle around it. And with the bear, which is a lovely touch, each of the aces have an animal associated. The 2, craftsman of the 3. The 4 as well, this is a somewhat different depiction, but one that works really well. He's locking, well, is he locking things away or is he getting things out? So hoarding your resources, but also having them available when you need them. And another, this is the greyhound and the rabbit of Ceridwen and Taliesin. The 6 of Pentacles, snow, hard times. And harvesting mistletoe, that you have to wait for exactly the right moment to do so. Apprentice card, the 9 of Pentacles, and the 10, sort of legacy. A thoughtful, playful Princess of Pentacles, a sturdy and stable prince. The Queen of Pentacles has a drum, bone drum, and the King of Pentacles in a place of plenty and abundance, a wonderful roaring fire, a little wren, I think, whispering secrets to him, or maybe it's a robin redbreast. And there's a boar in the background. So these are such wonderful cards. They have such depth to them that, you know, it's a deck I can only recommend. There don't seem to be any particular changes with this one. As I said, the back is still exactly as it was, with the design and so on. They are too ridiculously big to hold that way. I always shuffle these this way, or so this card has a slight chip in it actually. Still, it's my 3rd copy, and I'm sure that if you wanted to ask for a replacement card, they would be happy to oblige. As you can see, it riffle shuffles quite easily and well, so long as you do it sideways on, which is how I've always managed with these. And the cardstock is malleable enough to be able to do that quite easily. Altogether, a lovely deck. Underlying it all, the Ace of Wands. New beginnings, dynamism, energy, power, the ability to leap over obstacles. Yep, I could definitely do with all of that. Blessed be.